I'm not looking to make T-shirts, to be honest. I'm not looking to make socks. We can do that very well at other locations. We are looking to do chips and computers and lots of other things. Military equipment, we want to make big things. We want to do the AI thing with the computers and the many elements. But the textile, she just called me, as you know, and she asked for an extension on the June 1st date. And she said she wants to get down to serious negotiation because...
Imagine trying to make America great again, only to lose $2 trillion, cripple iconic American brands, and push Europe straight into Canada's arms. That's exactly what happened with Trump's steel tariffs. But how did hiking prices on bourbon and motorcycles in Europe lead to Harley-Davidson packing up? And what does Canada have to do with all this? Let's unpack this ironic saga of unintended consequences. Before we dive deeper, a quick favor. If you like this content, please hit that like button and subscribe. Over 98% of you watch without subscribing. It costs nothing but means the world. To us done? Awesome. Thank you. Now, back to the story. Donald Trump came in swinging, promising to rewrite global trade rules with a simple mantra: put America first and protect American jobs.
I've told you specifically, haven't I told anybody that would listen? They have to do that. And military equipment, we want to make big things. We want to do the AI thing with the computers and the many elements. But the textile, we had a very nice call, and I agreed to move it. I believe July 9th would be the date.
But what happens when the very rules you create trap you instead? That's the story of Trump's 2018 steel and aluminum tariffs. Under the Make America Great Again banner, the U.S. slapped a 25% tax on imported steel and 10% on aluminum. The goal was clear: make foreign steel pricier so American steel gets a boost. Simple enough, right? Wrong. It was like trying to protect your house by setting your neighborhood on fire. Sure, your house might survive, but everything else around it burns. The fallout. American jobs lost, businesses struggling, industries shaken. The tariffs did breathe some life back into steel and aluminum. About 1,000 jobs returned. Not a revolution, but a start.
You know, I'm not looking to make T-shirts, to be honest. I'm not looking to make socks. We can do that very well at other locations. We are looking to do chips and computers and lots of other things. I've told you specifically, haven't I told anybody that would listen? They have to do that. And that was the date she requested. Could we move it from June 1st to July 9th? And I agreed to do that. And that she said we will rapidly get together and see if we can work.
The problem was everywhere else. Industries relying on steel and aluminum cars, construction, appliances, got hammered by soaring costs. Take Ford. They admitted these tariffs cost them about $1 billion in profits. Billion, with a B. That's enough to make even giants like Ford feel the squeeze. Ford wasn't alone. Manufacturers across the board were burning cash just to keep up with expensive raw materials. Talk about friendly fire. Meanwhile, workers paid the price. A Tax Foundation report showed these tariffs wiped out 142,000 jobs and shaved 0.2% off the U.S. GDP. So while steel jobs gained 1,000 positions, nearly 140,000 jobs vanished elsewhere. It's like throwing a lifeline to one sinking ship while watching an entire fleet go under. Within a year, an estimated 75,000 jobs disappeared. 3/4 of a football stadium filled with unemployed workers.
She just called me, as you know, and she asked for an extension on the June 1st date. And she said she wants to get down to serious negotiation because she just called me, as you know, and she asked for an extension on the June 1st date. And she said she wants to get down to serious negotiation because...
Within a year of the tariffs, about 75,000 jobs vanished. Imagine, 3/4 of a football stadium emptied of workers. The goal was to build up one industry by kneecapping others. You couldn't make this stuff up if you tried. You'd think this move mainly hurt companies tied to global supply chains. And sure, those firms took a hit. But some of the biggest casualties came straight from the heart of American life. Trump talked a lot about middle-class jobs and blue-collar workers, truck drivers, line workers, welders, but these were the very people left out in the cold as factories slowed or shut down. This wasn't just dry economic data. It was real families, suddenly staring down unemployment lines. While politicians flexed during press conferences, ordinary Americans scrambled to pay rent. Here's the bitter irony. These tariffs were supposed to revive American manufacturing. Instead, they sent it spiraling. It wasn't just that companies struggled to compete. Foreign rivals were laughing all the way to the bank. Some industries even outsourced more jobs just to dodge the crushing costs at home. And the smaller businesses, local workshops that couldn't trim expenses, had no choice but to shut their doors. Meanwhile, those 1,000 new steel jobs, not nearly enough to offset the destruction elsewhere. It's like celebrating your sandcastle, surviving while the ocean wiped out the whole beach town. But wait, this isn't even the worst part. As Americans wrestled with higher prices and fewer jobs, the rest of the world was plotting a counterattack. They didn't just sit back, they hit back hard, carefully picking targets like a chess grandmaster setting up checkmate. Europe's move: strategic, precise, and a bit personal. Instead of random penalties, they aimed at some of America's most iconic exports: bourbon, Harley-Davidson motorcycles, Levi's jeans. These weren't just products, they were symbols of the American spirit. Europe's retaliatory didn't just hurt companies, they attacked the rugged, all-American image. The fallout brewed like a storm on a summer afternoon, threatening not just factories or boardrooms but small businesses, family companies, and political strongholds. Europe wasn't just punishing the US, they were signaling something bigger, a step away from dependence on America. As bourbon barrels gathered dust, a Canadian opportunity opened wide. When the EU retaliated, they went straight for the jugular, targeting America's cultural pride with surgical precision. Bourbon, Harley-Davidson, Levisich tells part of America's story: freedom on a roaring bike, rebellion in denim whiskey that tastes like the frontier. The EU knew exactly where to hit, and the results? More than one American icon limped. Start with bourbon, the amber liquid, as American as apple pie, if apple pie were 51% corn and aged in oak barrels. The EU slapped a 25% tariff on US whiskey. Exports and bourbon shipments to Europe plummeted over 30% within months. This wasn't just a hit to distillers, it was a body blow to Kentucky, Mitch McConnell's backyard, home to the world's top bourbon brands. By choking off a major market, the EU forced Kentucky's distilleries to let barrels age in warehouses for quality, but because of a trade war stunt? Imagine rows of whiskey gathering dust, enough to make any bourbon lover weep into an empty glass. Then there's Harley-Davidson, the chrome-clad symbol of the American highway. Europe was Harley's second largest market, so when the EU added steep tariffs, it hit like a pothole on the open road. To avoid jacking up prices, Harley made a controversial move, shifting some production overseas. Yes, Harley, the company that screams made in America, started building bikes in places like Thailand. Ironic? You bet. A motorcycle meant to embody freedom suddenly became a lesson in global supply chain flexibility. The backlash was immediate. Trump slammed Harley on Twitter for betraying American roots, but the company made it clear tariffs forced their hand. So while Trump pushed a trade policy to protect us manufacturers, Harley-Davidson was shipping jobs overseas. It's like a cowboy trading his horse for a Prius, not exactly the image you want. The EU knew exactly what they were doing. They couldn't retaliate against every US product, so they picked targets that would sting the most, economically and culturally. It worked. Harley-Davidson's costs soared, its stock price dropped, and its reputation took a hit. The EU roasted an American icon by simply tweaking a few tax rates. Here's the bigger picture. The EU wasn't just punishing faceless corporations, they were hitting communities. Harley's struggles hurt blue-collar workers tied to factories. Kentucky's bourbon troubles meant less revenue for distillers, local businesses, and families depending on them. Trump's bold trade war meant to lift these very people up, handing them a barrel of problems. Beyond the numbers, the backlash was deeply personal. The world watched as Trump's plan to show America's strength exposed its vulnerabilities. Instead of looking like a sheriff laying down the law, Trump looked like the guy who started a bar fight and got his nose bloodied. And maybe the wildest part, how Europe seemed to rub it in. You can almost picture them smirking as they ticked off their list. Bourbon, motorcycles, denim, what's next? Hot dogs and baseball caps. The truth is, Europe's counterattack was brilliant. It exposed just how interconnected global markets are. No country, no matter how powerful, can throw its weight around without backlash. The EU didn't just target products, they targeted symbols. They turned Trump's economic nationalism into an international punchline. This wasn't a loophole. The Canada-EU trade deal CETA facilitated booming trade between two massive economies. European businesses didn't just survive Trump's tariffs, they thrived. Meanwhile, Canada played its part perfectly, acting as Europe's gateway into North America. Canada enjoyed a surge in economic activity and tightened ties with EU members. McKinsey called it a masterclass in trade strategy, and they were right. While Trump tried to isolate the US economically, the rest of the world was busy making new friends. Canada didn't just get better access to European goods, CETA put them on the global trade map. No longer America's quiet northern neighbor, Canada found its own voice with direct access to one of the world's largest markets. The irony, none of this would have happened without Trump's trade war chaos. Trump aimed to isolate America from unfair trade, but ended up turning European and Canadian firms into stronger partners. By punishing imports, his administration pushed the EU to look everywhere but the US for better opportunities. It's like trying to stop a party by slamming the door, only for the noise to spill into someone else's house, where the music gets louder. Trade between Canada and the EU boomed thanks to CETA. It was real growth. giving European firms more options while injecting economic energy into Canada. Meanwhile, U.S. manufacturers were left licking their wounds. Make America Great Again was starting to look like make everyone else stronger while you struggle. Zoom out, and it gets even more ironic. Trump's tariffs were meant to rein in globalization, or at least reshape it, in America's favor. Instead, they did the opposite. CEDA and similar deals showed just how interconnected and adaptive the global economy is. Add a tariff here, and goods find a way around it there. It's like squeezing a balloon. The air doesn't vanish, it just shifts. McKinsey called this a new trade paradigm, where countries that once relied on the U.S. now turn to each other. Canada's role, no accident. It was a smart strategy that left America looking like the odd one out. And this wasn't just Europe and Canada. Other nations watched closely. The EU's workaround set an example for countries facing similar tariffs, showed there's always a way to fight back or bypass barriers. While America wrestled with rising costs and retaliations, Canada and the EU thrived off their new friendship. But this wasn't just economic gamesmanship. It was a shift in global alliances. The EU and Canada weren't just dodging tariffs, they were creating new trade corridors, reshaping how goods flow permanently. These deals aren't just convenient, they aim to reduce dependence on the US altogether, and the world noticed. China quickly followed with similar moves, deepening ties with emerging economies. The US wanted to be the referee in global trade, but now it's stuck on the sidelines watching others rewrite the rules. Europe and Canada's partnership isn't about escaping a temporary problem, it's about long-term independence from America's unpredictable policies. What seemed like clever work, a strategic game changer. When Trump tried to isolate America, he actually pulled everyone else closer. Global trade didn't just survive his tariffs, it evolved beyond them. Alliances like Europe and Canada's show just how interconnected and adaptable the economy really is. And this isn't the end of the story. As disruptive as these tariffs were, they sparked a broader, more ambitious strategy reshaping the global game board. America's expense. Trump's tariffs didn't just miss the mark, they spectacularly backfired. Instead of boosting the us, they gave Europe and Canada every reason to team up and leave America holding the short end of the stick. Through deals like CEDA, they sidestepped US barriers, reshaped global trade flows, and strengthened their economies against the very policies meant to weaken them now. America watches from the sidelines as global alliances evolve without it. What does this mean for America's future? Trade wars might sound tough, but as we've seen, the ricochet can hit even harder than the original shot.